importance of words and language on the public square today. This will be an interesting conversation. Stay tuned for it now. With the team, Dave Zanotti, Melanie Elsey, Rob Walgate, Jeff Sanders, and Alan C. Duncan at the mic is our producer. And what words do we want to focus on, Dave?
Oh, boy. Well, our Bible study today started on the Word. So we were discussing John chapter 1 and verse 1. In the beginning was the Word. And we were talking about the reality that when you study the God of the Bible, Old Testament and New, you find a God who speaks. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, in verse 3, and then God spoke. And the creative reality of God expressing who he is through word, through speaking, and how in the beginning was the Word, the great word of the Bible, the word, the Logos in Greek, in the New Testament, and Christ being the living Word of God made flesh. So words matter. We were tracking all of that back to the sense of conscience and consciousness. And so words matter. I mean, it's a part of what it is that makes us humans made in the image of God. So when all the times people talk about in the marketing construct or in an argument over Cracker Barrel or whatever it might be, that words matter, well, words do matter. And we got into a conversation about military battles and the absolute essential difference between good communications and bad communications, and how many battles have been lost because interior lines of communication were not established effectively. In fact, if you look at the entire Battle of Gettysburg, one of the most epic battles in the history of human warfare, you could say that it was a failure of communication, of effective communication on day one.
When General Lee said to General Ewell, take that hill if practicable. If he'd said that to Stonewall Jackson, if Jackson were alive, he would have said, take that hill, and that's all he would have had to say.
Right.
And it would have happened.
And that line of communication, which broke down, then established different points in the battle for the high ground, which then determined the balance of the fight. And it really comes down to, in review, that's the place where the battle was first lost, on communication. Now, of course, we're not picking sides on that. We're just talking about an example of an epic battle and how interior lines, and of course, throughout Gettysburg, the problem was communication across interior lines. And that has happened in every form of warfare. In the fog of battle, if you don't have communications, it's one of the reasons why it's very, very important. I mean, one of the
to be clear,
but
and
also
concise.
To be available.
Yeah,
we have kind of it's unfortunate, but given the nature of the work that we do and the size of the staff that we have, which means that most of us operate as if we're on 24-hour call. And for that to happen, you have to have cell phones that are turned on and that are working. And it's non-excusable for somebody to say, I'm sorry, I missed your call 2 days ago. Not around here. That just doesn't happen, which, by the way, I owe you a response to a text from over the weekend.
Thank you. I was just thinking that.
Yes, I know. So,
not that I'm keeping score or anything.
Clock is ticking,
About Sir Olivier, what was it?
Sir Lawrence Olivier.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, so
you got that?
You see, there's no escape. There is no escape. Okay, so communications truly matter, and obviously in the realm of political speech, communications are crucial. And so a memo came out. We'll set this up. A memo came out. It's titled under an article, Was It Something I Said? And it's called a memo from a group called Third Way. Now, Third Way, Melanie, is a group of former advisors to President Bill Clinton.
Correct.
They've been around for a while.
Yes, they have.
And they're an organization that has been funded by the leftist funding pools that flow from elitist billionaires, Arabella advisors, certain strategy groups that fund organizations. They're a group that has a very large operating budget. It's over $20 million annually and $50 million in retained earnings.
I think it's closer to $27 million annually.
Annually? Okay.
Yes.
So they got a lot of money. No one's ever heard of them. And and they carry in a boatload of money in a DC-based kind of thing. And I believe they're DC-based. And
they are.
So these are one of these groups behind the scenes. Sometimes they're called dark money groups, which would be relatively appropriate in this situation. Though that's not to be pejorative. It's just that it's you don't see them coming. They're operating, if you will, behind the scenes, and some people might say in the shadows. But they feel confident that they're capable of advising, particularly the Democrat side of the political infrastructure in America. And so they published a memo. They titled it, "Was It Something I Said?" And the memo reads in this way, and we're going to go over this today. Now, this is not going to be boring. I got to tell you, this is going to be, there are going to be moments when, without a doubt, if Lawrence Michaels people are listening, we're writing the next set of sketch comedy for you. This is really interesting.
Yeah. And when you go to the Third Way website, you know, one of the links everyone always clicks is About, right? Mm-hmm. Well, when you click About there, one of the first pictures you see is some of their staff with Nancy Pelosi. So that gives you an idea of some of the things that they work on, as well as you talked about the money side. They have a staff of 92. That's what's listed right now.
Wow, that was sorry. You just I was drinking coffee right there, right up the nose.
Wait, did you get it on the microphone? She just been on the mic.
92 people?
That's a lot.
That's what they have listed, and they have their bios, their social media links. Yeah, that's what they have listed there.
Slightly larger than the American Policy Roundtable.
Do you ever wonder what these multi-million-dollar think tanks harbored around D.C., and sometimes they're spread out in other parts of the country, what do 92 people do? We've been at this for 45 years.
Think about how much they got to pay in their real estate cost every single month.
But for all we know, they might be operating virtually.
Well, I mean, some of the job titles, I won't say names of the people, but some of the job titles. I mean, we do have the senior advisor to the Moderate Power Project. So that is one of the job titles from Third Way. Senior Policy Advisor for Transportation, Climate, and Energy Program. There's a lot of policy advisors. Policy Advisor for Deployment.
Well, they also are foundational to a super PAC called the Shield PAC. And that aim after the 2020 elections was to protect vulnerable Democratic House seats in swing districts.
My guess, Alan and Wayne, most of the people listening to this today on whatever format you're picking us up, whether you're listening on YouTube, whether you're watching a video, whether you're because you never know what we're going to do next with this, whether you're listening on any way you get podcasts, or listening on the air on a wonderful radio station that's broadcasting this program, whether you listen daily or weekend, you don't know about this group.
I was just thinking about that. How many organizations are there like this out there working to these ends?
When it comes to the left, there are a boatload. Now, there are conservative star chambers that coalesce groups that are also involved in the public policy business, but our experience in analyzing both sides, there is the left machine is just massive, and the amount of money is massive, funded by global internationalist billionaires and local corporations in the United States, as well, domestic corporations in the U.S., all designed to influence public policy. On the right, the Heritage Foundation gets a lot of publicity as being like the ones that are telling, this administration or others what to do. On the left, it is clearly Center for American Progress, and then all of these Arabella advisor-funded groups that have come up in the last 10, 15 years. Mm-hmm. And their goal is to basically house the people that do the work, that bring the policy, and hand it to the politicians and say, do this because so-and-so says so. It's kind of, now you don't even have to use that, because they know when that person walks in the room, they know who's carrying the water and what it's all about. Politics is a very behind-the-scene, creepy, dark scenario in Washington, D.C. It's getting worse in the States, but it is inside D.C. Look, I mean, we do this for a living. We tell people, don't try this at home. All right, but if you do, please, at all costs, don't try it alone, because it is dark. It's and this is one of the examples of out from the shadows emerges now this group, Third Way, and they decided to go ahead and they put out a memo, and I don't know exactly how it got leaked to Politico. I don't think that could possibly be coincidental, because Politico is a left-wing media outlet that talks basically to the muckety-mucks who are in charge of policy. So this is like straight. This is good. I mean, this is solid stuff. This is definitely like lunch being served to you by the socialist left. This is it's real. Okay, so let's get into the memo from Third Way. It's titled, "To All Who Wish to Stop Donald Trump and MAGA from Third Way." Okay, here we go. For a party that spends billions of dollars trying to find the perfect language to connect to voters, Democrats and their allies use an awful lot of words and phrases no ordinary person would ever dream of saying. The intent of this language is to include, broaden, empathize, accept, and embrace. The effect of this language is to sound like the extreme, divisive, elitist, help me, Melanie, and obfuscatory.
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 To obfuscate.
Thank you. What's that in the Greek? Obfuscatory enforcers of wokeness. To please the few, we have alienated the many, especially on culture issues, where our language sounds superior, haughty, and arrogant. In reality, most Democrats do not run or govern on wildly out-of-touch social positions, but voters would be excused to believe we do not, or that we do, because of the words that come out of our mouths. Words which we sound like we are hiding behind unfamiliar phrases to mask extreme intent. Okay, why the tortured language, the memo asks. After all, many Democrats are aware that words and phrases we use can be profoundly alienating, but they use it because plain, authentic language that voters understand often rebounds badly among many activists and advocacy organizations. These activists and advocates may take on noble causes, but in doing so, they often demand compliance with their preferred messages. That is how, quote, birthing person, end quote, became a stand-in for mother or mom. And if we don't think more carefully about our language, many in America will be banking on help from Donald Trump and Republicans because Democrat levers of power will be few and far between. All right, let's stop right there.
Yeah.
I love this term, Democrats' levers of power. We got to talk about that.
We will. We've identified the article and the topic today in the Public Square, and we'll come back and dig in more deeply when we return in just a moment on the Public Square.
Introducing the latest program from the Public Square.
Kids on the Square.
We at Kids on the Square are dedicated to helping teach the next generation through topics like Bible stories, scientific marvels, and American history. We want to equip parents with fun and free educational resources to share the truth with their children. Won't you join us? New episodes are released monthly. You can listen wherever podcasts are available and visit kidsonthesquare.com to find out more. Thank you, and
welcome to Kids on the Square.
Spreading the light of liberty across the land. Now back to the Public Square.
Let's get back into the conversation now in the Public Square today. We've identified this memo from Third Way, and there's more to the content of it, and then we'll kind of analyze what we're reading here, Dave.
Right. Now, again, to be fair to Third Way, that was not invited into this conversation, though they're certainly welcome. I mean, they publish this for the whole world, so we're reading their words, all right, without editorial comment yet. In this memo that they go on, we are putting a spotlight on the language we use, that's speaking of Democrats, that puts a wall between us and everyday people of all races, religions, and ethnicities. These are words that the people simply do not say, yet they hear from Democrats. Over the years, we've conducted, read, and analyzed hours upon hours of focus groups, and we've yet to hear a voter volunteer any of the phrases below, except as a form of derision or parody of Democrats. We're not talking about techno-speak like net zero and climate resiliency. These words put up their own Ivy League walls between policymakers and voters. Here, we are focusing on the eggshell dance of political correctness, which leaves the people we aim to reach cold or fearful of admonishment. By the way, this is very well written. Continuing, their last paragraph. Finally, we are not out to police language, ban phrases, or create our own form of censorship. Truth be told, we have published papers that have used some of these words as well. But when policymakers are public-facing, the language we use must invite, not repel, must start a conversation, not end it, provide clarity, not confusion. Now, then they go into the types of words under categorization. But before we get there, the word that jumped out at me the most was this one. But when policymakers are public-facing.
What is that?
The language we use must invite, not repel, start a conversation, not end it, provide clarity. When policymakers are public-facing, have you ever heard that use of language before?
Not until a few hours ago.
No, I have heard it. Yes.
Have you?
I have heard
Really?
it. Yes.
Wow.
When you're addressing the public, when you're saying things that will be digested publicly.
When you're talking to people.
The thing that jumps out at me is the outright lie in that first sentence. Finally, we are not out to police language, ban phrases, or create our own. What have they been doing for 35 years?
Has anybody ever heard of cancel culture?
Yeah, I mean,
but this, to me, that's kind of the point of this piece. They're realizing that's not working right now.
Okay, so this is their. Is this like a document of
exculpatory?
Is it repentance? Are they?
Well, I think it's I agree. I don't think it is, because I think they're saying we're going to continue to publish academic pieces with this kind of language. We are going to continue to use this kind of language behind closed doors when we speak to our fellow progressive folks. When we talk to the everyday average Americans,
it's not a change of mind, but a change of tactic. Is that what we're talking about?
That's the way I read this.
Yes. Repentance being defined as change of mind, not in connoting religion.
Mind and action, both.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and I think both sides are guilty of this. They repel people and people that maybe are on the fence or in the middle of the road, they don't welcome them in. They talk down to them with their language. And I think both sides do it. And I think they're recognizing, listen, they've gone drastic so far on the left that they're not changing anyone's mind.
Most importantly, at the end of the article, it states we will never abandon our values or stop doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
All they're doing here in the article is saying we have to change our marketing. We have to change the way we communicate so that we can help people understand us differently. But that doesn't mean we're going to change what our policies are.
Yes. So I think it means that we all need to be even more vigilant than before, because previously they were using all these buzzwords and you kind of okay, I know what they mean by that.
They realized they were using buzzwords that went to 3 to 8% of the population at best.
All right, roll tape back. Hang on a second. Hang on. I want to go back to public speaking. All right, public facing. What was the terminology? Yes, but when policymakers are public facing. Okay, let's parse that now. Let's come on. We've got a lot of language. We got at least 3 language students in this room that have studied verb tenses. And all right, let's go here for a second. Public facing. This is one of the things that is astounding to me about the progressive socialist left. There is a sense that the public is out here and the leaders are over here, not a part of the public.
We are lecturing you.
Yes, do you understand? There is literally in terminology a sense of disassociation.
A superiority, yeah.
Yeah, well, it connotes superiority. It certainly requires separation. That's when politicians say, well, the American public is blah, 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 blah. Well, excuse me, are you not a part of the American public? And Republicans and Democrats both do this. Conservatives and liberals don't do this. How many times do you hear a politician on some cable news channel, the American public, excuse me, you're the American public. When did you become like this elite class? You get elected and you're now not a part of the public. Another example, how is it that we talk about public schools, but parents who have their kids in those schools who want to use some kind of school choice are suddenly no longer a part of the public system? Doesn't everybody have to pay taxes? Everybody pays some form of tax in this country, period. Nobody gets away with nothing, okay? But the idea is if it's a public school, isn't everybody in the public a part of the schools? So that's the first thing, is the sense of separation. But look at the other thing. And there's a tortured sense of grammar in this. But when politicians are public-facing, I don't know what aberration of the English language that is in regards to verb tenses and person, but there's something that is absolutely abnormal in the way that's constructed. When politicians are public-facing, wait a minute, that's like some tortured idea of the passive voice. And the key is that this one thing that is absolutely true about this generation of Americans that we are living in and amidst and surrounded of, we have somehow brought the passive voice into a place of reality that it's never been before in American discourse and speech. We live in the passive voice. People create new verbs of passiveness. And the reason for that is because the whole predicate of the socialist left is victimization. Something has happened to them. And so they live in this victim passive voice thing. So when politicians are public facing, well, that's just stupid.
The passive voice is being lived in by us? Is that
there you go.
I'm trying to think of how to say it in the passive voice.
Thank you. I expect in fact, probably I'm expecting anytime spelling grammar checking, which used to tell you you're in the passive voice, that's not where you're supposed to live in the context of this writing, will disappear altogether completely.
Well, I'm just
How was
thinking,
that for a lousy sentence? Altogether completely. I think I sounded like Jerry Lewis or I sounded like some comic character at that time.
But I think that's
that
how we
wasn't
got.
Jerry Lewis.
I think that's how we got into this mess, though, is the creation of new words and academia going wild. And you talking about that sentence right there. I mean, that's what they've done in essence, right? They just tried to one up each other with the language.
Excuse me, Rob, are you public facing right now, or are you?
To me, the words that they're talking about, and we're going to get to reading a list of kind of some of these buzzwords. The part of the reason that there's an issue with them is we already had perfectly fine words already that meant the same thing.
That were not good enough.
That yes, for whatever reason, we're not good enough. And the question
we're
is
non-controversial.
why? Well, they became controversial, and that's the question. Why did perfectly fine words with real definitions and meaning behind them, why did those become controversial, and why are these words somehow supposed to be better? So I think that's something we need to get into. What's the game here?
I think they describe the game. They say, when we use words people don't understand, their brain signals distrust. I understand what they're saying. I just don't agree with it.
Right.
It's not like you must not understand separated from the point of the policy I don't agree with.
Yeah.
Right. So let's we got to do we got to
get into the words.
Yeah,
I can't take it anymore. Here we go.
All right,
here we go. I'm so anxious to do this.
Some of these I still don't know what they mean.
All right, now they list here again. The third way memo now lists by category some of the words that they're talking.
You have to give the header, right?
The header. The first header is therapy speak.
Okay.
All right, therapy-speak. These words say, I'm more empathetic than you, and you are callous to hurting others' feelings. And here's the list of words. Privilege, violence, as in environmental violence, dialoguing, othering, triggering, microaggression, assault, invalidation, progressive stack, centering, safe space, holding space, body shaming. Be aware, words proliferating in the elite circles that have closed off open conversations and have made it uncomfortable for many people to engage in hard topics.
See, I think the elitists came up with these cryptic terms in order to hide their agenda, whatever their agenda was supposed to be, which they knew would be rejected by a lot of people. They wanted to couch their terms in something that sounded very intellectual.
Well, have you ever asked who sits around and makes these words up?
And there are even more of them than we've talked about so far. We'll get to more on that list coming up on the Public Square. If you joined us late, this conversation, well, you got to hear from the beginning, I think. And you can do that on YouTube at our channel there. You can listen on our website, thepublicsquare.com, and with our smartphone app as well.
Every day, people across the nation contribute to the mission of the Public Square. Because of those gifts, this broadcast is now heard on the radio coast to coast every day. Thousands are finding the path to true liberty every day because of the support of listeners just like you. Your gifts of any and every size are reaching lives today. Thank you for your support.
spreading the light of liberty across the land. Now back to the public square.
Well, we're only partway through a list of words that we don't understand on today's Public Square. I'm Wayne Shepherd here. We've got Dave Zanotti, Melanie Elsey, Rob Walgate, Jeff Sanders, and Alan C. Duncan all kicking this around here from this article from Third Way, this memo that came out, Dave.
Telling Democrats to stop talking in language that nobody understands or that scares them.
I love the quote. Matt Bennett of Third Way, he's Executive VP of Public Affairs. He's quoted in this article as saying, "We are doing our best to get Democrats to talk like normal people and stop talking like they're leading a seminar at Antioch." And I smiled. You know why I'm smiling, right?
Come on. That's Antioch is code, and we're not talking about Antioch in Acts chapter 13.
No,
the church that launched Barnabas and Paul.
Antioch is one of the most liberal universities in America. It happens to be down the road from a little Baptist university I attended. So when I wasn't always in lockstep with the dean's office at my Baptist university. So
you traveled to Yellow Springs?
I always wore a T-shirt that said Antioch. And it drew a little attention at this Christian university. And I always said, well, they were first called Christians in Antioch. It says that in Acts. So that was my justification for wearing that T-shirt.
The rebel emerges, the young Wayne Shepherd firebrand standing before the administration. My goodness.
Antioch is located in Yellow Springs, Ohio. I've never asked why it's called Yellow Springs and don't want to know, but there it is. So
there used to be a place called Young's Dairy.
Oh, it's still there.
Is it still there?
Still there. Yep.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Great ice cream.
Yep, spent a lot of time around there. Okay. And that's Dave Chappelle land now.
What do they put in that ice cream, I wonder?
Well, now that things are legal, who knows?
Okay. Young's is a great organization. Don't color them with Antioch, Jeff.
Oh, okay. No, they just happen to be in the proximity of thereof. Okay.
All
right. Now, so we went through therapy speak, and obviously we could spend all day just talking about microaggression and whatever progressive stack is. I don't.
That's one I have not heard. I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is, but okay. All right, now this.
If any of these are actually like crude in any way, we just don't know. So
yes, we apologize if there's slang meanings we don't know. Dave Chappelle, forgive us. I apologize. Okay, seminar room language. This is another category of words. This language, according to the memo, says, "Quote: I'm smarter and more concerned about important issues than you. Your kitchen table concerns are small." Ooh, so already I feel that pejorative. Your kitchen table, like as of course you're not an expert like all the rest.
Yeah, they're trying to say don't do that to people. Yeah.
Yes, you know the best room in the American Mission Center I think is the kitchen.
Yes,
we do more business over the kitchen table. Yeah.
I'm trying to get to the kitchen right now.
Yes, I know. It's past lunchtime. Okay, all right. So here are some of the seminar room language terms that are not to be used: subverting norms. Okay. Systems of oppression. Critical history. That would be,
critical theory.
Critical theory.
Yeah, theory.
Oh, did I say critical? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Critical theory. Yeah, fortunately, we've had plenty of seminars on critical theory.
Which is slightly different from critical race theory, but they're in the same
ballpark.
That's
right. The birthplace of critical race theory was critical theory. Okay. Cultural appropriation.
That means I cannot eat a taco. That's what that means.
Okay. Postmodernism. Now, I think they borrowed that from the world of philosophy. I don't think the Democrats made that one up at all.
Yeah, that's been around a while.
The Overton window.
I have no idea what that is.
That is when something at one point is socially acceptable, and over time there's a shift.
Did you look that up, or did you know that, Melanie?
Both. I had to be reminded.
The next one I cannot even pronounce.
Heuristic.
It comes from the Greek word eurisko, which means to discover or find.
Experiment.
When you say eureka, I have discovered it. It's part of the verb eurisko.
Okay. All right. And then the last one, this is, of course, the existential threat. You think?
Anybody you don't like.
Yeah.
Could that just be discarded for overuse? Existential threat to, and then they say climate, the planet, democracy, the economy.
They should have said Donald Trump in their list of what they typically refer to.
Oh, yeah. He's the
exactly. That's what they say.
He is the existential threat.
Technology is really the reason they can't use that phrase anymore, because they've been saying it for 25 years or longer about certain things that haven't come true.
Yes.
And we're supposed to come true by now.
And of course, they borrowed another word from philosophy there in existentialism, and the idea that existential threat means, okay, it's real. Okay, why don't you say it's a real threat? Okay, When we use words people don't understand, they go on, studies show that the part of their brain that signals distrust becomes more active, undermining our ability to reach them. Now, we just went through the idea that they said they got to stop talking like they're smarter than anybody else, but they seem to have forgotten that by the time we got to this paragraph.
They're like, these dumb idiots can't understand what we're talking about, so we better not talk like this.
Here we are reading your list out loud, and we've never sat before and read this list out loud, and we're actually giving you the backgrounds on some of these words from other series of stuff, but okay, we're just too stupid. All right, now we go to the next level, organizer jargon. These words say, quote, we are beholden to groups, not individuals. People have no agency. Interesting. People have no agency is a very powerful statement.
That's another highfalutin phrase.
Yes.
They have no way of changing things on their own.
Or if we're going to use agency in the philosophical and theological perspective, that people have no capacity to decide from their own will.
I just think it's hilarious that in their effort to give us words not to use, they use words not to use.
They can't get away from it.
Well, makes me want to laugh.
How many years do you have to live in this cocoon to come up with this much rhetoric?
I love it that in the Politico article, it uses the same stuff, and it says one of the people telling us that we need to start speaking normally is Sarah McBride, who is the first transgender member of the United States House of Representatives.
Teaching us how to be normal?
That's exactly what the Politico article says.
Yeah.
Can I break in and read a C.S. Lewis quote very quickly before we go on to the rest of the list?
Wait a minute. Won't your friend G.K. Chesterton be upset because you put Lewis ahead of him?
Well, maybe I'll read a G.K. Chesterton one next.
Oh, it's for the close. You're set up. I got you. Somebody did their homework.
No, this was part of the book Gilbert and Jack that my dad worked on together. One of the chapters was about the importance of naming things. It's not nothing. What we call stuff really matters. And indeed, that was the first job that God gave to Adam, was to name the animals that he saw in the garden. I don't think that that's a coincidence. That's not random. Particularly when you talk about Christ as the Logos, Christ as the Word. Words are very, very important, and we're probably going to get to that more. But C.S. Lewis just gives this brief quote. It says, language is not an infallible guide, but it contains, with all its defects, a good deal of stored insight and experience. If you begin by flouting it, it has a way of avenging itself later on. And I think that's what they're coming to. These folks have flouted perfectly fine words that really meant things to generations of human beings, and they tried to reinvent it on the fly, and people said, we don't want these words. We already have perfectly fine words.
That should be a segment close, Wayne. That's pretty good. That's almost a mic drop on Alan's part. That's very powerful.
Yeah, but we're too soon for a cutaway, Alan.
I'm not trying to mic drop it. That's just...
That was an excellent point. And part of this, of course, brings up the question of generationalism. And I do think that often when we get into these conversations, let's face it, Lewis is from a generation gone by. And so much of the rhetoric that we've seen here has come up, and now they're basically saying it should be gone. This language has only been with us for maybe 20 years. In other words, they can't even keep the shelf life for a generation, and it's shifting.
And I think a lot of this language has come, though, from the younger generation that tries to sound important to the older generation. They're the ones that have pushed this in many instances and circumstances. And the older generation... I
think they got it from college, though. I think some of this came out of the institutions, came out of college.
Yeah. I agree.
Seminar at Antioch? Yeah.
But then, Antioch, Wayne's place.
Wayne's World.
Careful.
So I think you're really onto it. The other thing I've noticed, it's always been true, at least in my human experience, which is very, very limited, that young people talk faster than old people. True or false?
Very true. Very true.
Have young people ever talked faster than they do now?
I don't think so. They slur everything.
The volume of words, and I'm not just talking about teenagers that are working their way up. I mean, I'm talking about people coming out of college. The rapidity and the volume of words are so huge that sometimes, you can listen to certain technical stuff, and I listen to a lot of it, and you're gone in 30 seconds because the volume of words that you got hit with, how could anybody comprehend it?
Yeah. We'll continue talking about the lessons we learned from this memo that I'm trying to think of a good word that would obscure never mind. Doesn't come to mind. All right. Thank you. All right. We'll be back to talk more
Let's
about
take
this.
a deep dive.
I hate
A deep dive coming up next on the Public Square with apologies to Jeff Sanders.
We will be right back for more on the Public Square.
Picking up where we left off on the Public Square here today. Rob, the floor is yours.
Well, we talked about the organizer jargon, but we never read the actual words.
That was my fault.
We
sorry.
couldn't get past the phrase, people have no agency. So that sidetracked. So here's the list. Radical transparency, small d democracy, barriers to participation, stakeholders, the unhoused, food insecurity, housing insecurity, person who immigrated. Democrats can fight for the poor, the hungry, the homeless, and immigrants more effectively if they speak in everyday language and in the language of those most affected by these issues.
These are just definitions. These aren't names. A name is a tool. A name is a shorthand for the definition. That's what a dictionary tells you. It tells you the name of the thing and then what it means. They're just stripping off the name and saying the definition. It just takes longer. The unhoused, homeless. Like we had a name for it. It's homeless. That's not. They think that's offensive to just call a thing what it is. Food insecurity. Hungry. Person who immigrated. Immigrant.
Let's continue in that vein, because I think the next category takes us right to where you're saying gender orientation correctness. Here's the explainer. These say, quote, your views on traditional genders and gender roles are at best quaint. At this stage in the game, there is the room is filled with pink smoke, and Dolores Umbridge is about to emerge from a Harry Potter movie, all right? Because it just sounds so quaint. Here we go. Birthing person, inseminated person, pregnant people, chest feeding, cisgender, dead naming, heteronormative, patriarchy, and here's the last one, LGBTQIA.
Plus.
Don't forget the plus. That was very offensive.
Because,
forget the plus.
You are
So
a heretic.
these are the words where they're saying, if you use these words, your views on traditional genders and gender roles are at best quaint.
So they're saying we're going to try to. They're saying we're going to try to stop using these because
Yes.
we don't want to make you seem like that.
And what they add underneath, the standing up to MAGA's cruel attacks on gay and transgender people requires creating empathy and building a broad coalition, not confusing or shaming people who could otherwise be allies. But what I find interesting is where they say standing up to MAGA. Have they not looked at some of his cabinet members and
Scott
choices?
Bessent or Tammy Bruce?
Like, what?
They are both LGBTQIA. I mean, and they're not the only one. And they're not the only ones.
Right, that's what I mean. So I'm like looking around like, wait a minute, which administration are they talking about?
It does cause you to ask yourself, wait a minute, where are there cruel attacks on gay and trans? Well, maybe
Name one.
Maybe they consider this conversation as a cruel attack, because it seems to me that anyone who speaks in any way, shape, or form against the accepted socialist agenda, against the LGBTQIA agenda, is somehow
You're evil.
in a position of offense. So I don't know, but okay. So there they are.
Let's dig into these words a little bit more. Maybe.
I'm trying to get away from them as fast as I can.
Again, a birthing person, an inseminated person, that would be a pregnant woman.
So what's a guy?
Or a mom.
A mom. But they don't. But see, that's the thing. They feel like that is offensive to say. That's why they went with these terms, because then you're saying someone trans can't have a baby.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
I know. That's what I'm saying too. But that's why they invented this term.
Actually, if you're trans where you're moving from female to male, you can still have a baby.
And they bring these illustrations up
okay.
constantly.
Sure.
All right.
That's
in that regard.
That's why they won't just say pregnant
and I
woman.
think some of these words came out of the fact too. I mean, if we think about the confirmation process for Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown, right? And they asked her to define
woman.
What is a woman?
She said, I'm not a biologist.
I think that's when, Democrats start looking around and realize, hey, wait a minute, how many people here are actually in agreement that want her to answer that word? And those are people that, as they highlight, would be their allies, but they realize they're talking in a way they don't want them to.
Well, I'm also counting syllables. Heteronormative. I don't know what that means.
Hetero means opposite.
But I'm guessing that there's
against.
a word that's got less syllables than that could explain it. And I come to the realization that when you go LGBTQIA+, even though those are not technically syllables, it still takes what sounds like 8 syllables to say it out loud. I wonder sometimes if in the quest to mask the simple meanings of what they're trying to say, they would rather speak in this kind of conversational words.
That's what the point I made earlier. They want to make it cryptic on purpose to disguise their agenda.
I don't think they're disguising. I think they're just trying to sound smarter.
Yeah.
I think what they said in this piece, they're walking on eggshells. You said woman. That actually excludes the trans person that's pregnant.
Oh, that's interesting.
They're walking.
They can't find language to match the board game.
Yeah, don't say homeless guy.
That's because as Americans, we're offended by everything anymore.
That's what this
is.
We're
so offended.
But who taught us to be
That's
offended?
a microaggression. You can't offend me even a touch. That's a microaggression.
Right.
It's all just trying to present this really safe face.
Now, I'm hearing people shouting at their radio devices right now. Let's just say that there is a strategy here, whether it's intentional or not. The reality is, in our lifetimes, we have seen a divisive strategy employed 100%. In the political realm, and it's Dr. Allen first explained it to me. I remember we were in a master's class together, and he first explained it to me in the term tribalism. And it's the first time I heard somebody say that years ago, say that word out loud. And the notion is that there has been an specific intention to divide Americans one against the other so that one group could create a political coalition that had 1% more of the voters than the other 49%. And that the Democrat regime decided to take the left side of the political and left-leaning equation and split it against the right and to end up living in endless combat, a divide and conquer strategy. And so to do that, you have to facilitate a whole brand of language to talk to your people.
Well, when you control language, you can control how people speak. I mean, this is 1984.
And what they think?
And what they think. Because you think almost, look, they even put these in categories for us. You're already thinking within the categories that they want us to think about.
But to turn the corner from being divisive to what they are describing, you can read it between these categories to create empathy and build broad coalitions. Their goal is policy change. Language is an ends to a means, or a means to an end. So we have said over the years, and one of my favorite analogies is to take off the wrapping paper and look inside the box. All they're describing here is the change of the wrapping paper. We have to change how we're discussing. We're not going to change our values. We're not going to change what we do. We have to change how we're talking about it so we can pull others in.
Clearly. Yeah, there's not an intention of saying so. It's a change of strategy. It's not a change of mind. It's a change of strategy.
But I do think it reflects that sanity is more popular right now in culture than insanity. So I think we have a window of time.
So glad.
All right, we've got to get to the what do we do about this. Let me just throw a couple more terms as we close out of this segment. There's the shifting language of racial constructs. Okay, they lost me at the header. The shifting language of racial constructs. These words signal that talking about race is even more of a minefield. You'll be called out as a racist if you do not use the latest correct terminology. And they say Latinx, BIPOC,
Black, Indigenous, people of color.
Yeah.
Allyship, intersectionality, minoritized communities. As we fight racism and discrimination, we should reflect upon whether the words we are using are part of the reason Democrats are losing support from all non-white voter groups.
That's crazy. Think about that.
Yeah.
They're trying to be so inclusive that they're losing the people they're trying to include.
That's what they're saying. All right, here's their explaining.
They're like, I don't say this.
Because the people they're trying to include
they don't talk like
look
this.
at this and they go, this is stupid. I don't believe any of that.
Explaining
junk.
away crime. These words, they say, are telling us that the criminal is the victim is an afterthought, if you talk in this way. Justice involved, incarceration, incarcerated people, involuntary confinement. All right, so now we've got to get to, now we've got the words all out, now we've got to get to what do we do about this?
Yeah, and we will when we come back in a moment. Most of you will be with us. A few of you have to leave us at this time, and you can always listen to this entire program on our YouTube channel for the American Policy Roundtable, The Public Square, or at thepublicsquare.com. Well, we discussed this third way memo in detail here today. We've thrown out a lot of words of our own here and tried to define the words that we see in the memo, but what do we do about all this? That's the question on the table, Dave.
It's the human dilemma. Communication is a human dilemma. We do have agency. We do have the right to choose words, and the words that we speak reflect the worldview that we hold. There's no doubt. There is an entire litany of communications that are on the right. All right, so we could probably have.
There's Christianese too.
All right, there are dialects inside English practiced in America and the Western world from different communities of people that have affinity connections. We get all that. I appreciate Third Way having the courage to explain some of these things to us. I know that just reading through them makes me feel far more alienated than I ever have before from the people behind the scenes in these organizations, and I started off feeling pretty alienated. Language is troubling to me, and the fact that people from Washington, D.C., and think tanks and academia and other places talk down their noses to all the rest of us from the right and from the left and make us feel small and stupid has always bothered me, because when you read American history, it wasn't a country that was created by just geniuses who were smarter than everybody else. Now, the 55 people that signed that Declaration of Independence, 56 people were pretty smart people. 55 people that put together the Constitution, pretty smart people, a lot smarter than the average bear. But they were unafraid in the Declaration of Independence to speak to all of us so we can still read it today and comprehend it. So this language barrier is difficult, but by exposing the words and their memos saying we've got to talk better to people because they don't get us, in and of itself, is that an indictment that you can even recover from?
I do think that this indicates that the right is winning in the culture war right now.
Or normal speech is winning.
Or people want the truth told to them, even if some may not agree with what they think the truth is. I mean, when you there's people who would agree with some of these things that are said, but they're like, you don't have to tell me they're a birthing person. It's a mom.
Exactly.
I don't, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because that honestly, that becomes offensive on the other end. That is a mother.
Yes.
Don't take that name away from somebody. That's a high honor and that's high praise. So don't take that away.
One of the defenses that could be made on behalf of the people having this conversation from Third Way, repeating it into the audience they wrote it to, is simply that we've worn out some words and it's time to have new words.
How about just the old ones back?
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's a great suggestion, but apparently they don't go that far, if you'll notice. They don't want to go back. They just want to find another way. So maybe the answer is to just invent new words.
Well, you know what? Honestly, I wouldn't be opposed if somebody, every word was new at some point. If you're doing it out of creativity, out of love, out of trying to communicate something true, inventing a new word is not wrong on its face. But these words are trying to speak lies.
But the question that remains on the table is it just their language or is it the genuine agenda? Are people not listening any longer and rejecting them because the novelty of the words has faded into the reality of the policy and the intention? which is that the folks that are using this language, the folks that are in the Democrat elite circles and the radical left, and you can be a Republican as well in that circle, actually have a desired change for society that most people, A, either don't understand, or B, sincerely don't want once they do understand it. Which brings us back to masking what you're really all about versus being transparent. There's a great word in the New Testament that St. Paul uses called sincerity. And the word sincerity that he refers to, it isn't like sincerely yours. The word sincerity might be translated as transparency. It's simplified, and it comes from the concept that back in the day of the New Testament, people would travel the country selling fabric. They still do it today, by the way. And when someone was trying to sell you a piece of fabric, they would show you the cloth. It's called show the hand of the cloth. In essence, you would hold it with your hand and let it drape out so you could see the cloth. But most often an insincere person would hold the flaw that's in the cloth in their hand so you couldn't see it.
Wow. Interesting.
And what Paul talks about is a sincere person does not do that. That's why in Romans chapter 12 he says love must be sincere. Another definition of that word is unmasked, which in and of itself could do a whole radio show, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is transparency so that everyone can understand what we're talking about.
But they are not expressing a desire to unmask. What they are describing here is a desire to change masks.
It's a nicer mask, a friendlier mask.
Right. Yeah. It's a more acceptable mask. Let's talk in so that the words that we use will mean something to us in a way that's acceptable to you. That's not transparency. Right. Transparency is removing the cover, letting us see what the policy is and how it affects us.
I do still think of this as a win for culture because if they do, and I don't know that this memo is even going to work. I think I've talked to people that talk like this. It's so ingrained in them, sadly.
Right.
But if this can get removed from culture, I do think it's a cultural win. Oh, we don't have to dance around each other anymore. We can speak sincerely. Even if you and I disagree, at least we're using the same words again. I do think that's helpful.
Well, I think when you look at academia, if they stop using these words, they're going to feel like they're ceding ground. And I just don't see them doing that.
I agree. I agree. Here's the other problem with these words. They're not funny. You know, I think one thing we can do as a takeaway is let's continue to joke around. Let's continue to be fun. I truly think, I tell Ethan, I have a 14-year-old, I tell him his generation is going to have to solve a lot of these problems. I'm sorry we're leaving you with some problems, but his grade, they just joke around with each other all the time. And it's in good-natured, good spirits. They make fun of each other's accents or each other's nationalities. And everybody, they make fun of his dyslexia. They make fun of his other one kid short. But it's funny and it's fun and people don't get mad about it. Now the teachers hear them and they get all offended, but they all get in trouble at lunch. But they mean it as camaraderie. If you've been in locker rooms with teams, this is kind of how people talk. And I'm sure foxholes would be similar. It's a mechanism of team building, as long as it doesn't go too far. But we got to keep our humor. I think it'll help us a lot.
Okay, so all of this is just words. So we've a whole show on words, on buzzwords. One group is saying to get farther in a political agenda, we have to find a better way to communicate with people because we're alienating them, and here's how. Okay. I think you could have a memo coming exactly the other way for 3 or 4 other dialect organizations. What we're trying to do here is to break this stuff down and not speak code. Try the best we can to be sincere, disclosed, unmasked, and tell the truth as best we can understand it and discover it. And if all else fails, we'll buy more Antioch T-shirts.
Or at least attend one of their seminars, huh? I think our listeners are more attuned to these words now, and I think that's the service we've provided today is we'll be on the watch for these words to pop up, won't we?
Well, and we'll know when we're being buzzed and understand that there is usually an agenda between
What do you mean by buzz? Is that a buzzword?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I meant to say bully. Can we say that? No.
Okay.
Can't say that. Okay.
And we always have to have the response on our end where we're speaking truth, but we do it in love. So sometimes it's not what you say, but how you say it.
Amen.
But whether we're talking to family or friends, we don't operate from a position of fear. So we can't be afraid that we're going to offend somebody, but we do have to be careful that we communicate in a way that expresses the way Jesus would want us to. We just have to want to be a blessing to the person that we're talking to, whether we're agreeing or disagreeing with them in principle.
Good last word. Thank you, Melanie. Well, thank you all for this conversation today. Very helpful as always. This is a program you'll want to share with others. Perhaps you can give them the website, thepublicsquare.com. You can tell them look us up on YouTube and listen as well, or use our smartphone app. But in either case, thanks for listening to this week's edition of The Public Square.
The Public Square is a broadcast service of the American Policy Roundtable.